Welcome to the Jung Contrarian podcast. I'm Liam Joseph, the Jung Contrarian. They say never publicly discuss politics or religion due to its general prickliness and taboo. So instead, let's discuss politics and religion. I've been meaning to do separate talks on each topic, but the more I think about it and draft ideas, the more I realize how entangled they are. Much like an anti-scientific double helix, the DNA of our current social climate has as much to do with government as it does God. While it's quite obvious that the majority of the MAGA folk are conservative evangelicals, it goes much deeper than that. It would appear that Trump consciously has tapped into the gullibility of the herd. I doubt it was his idea, likely a suggestion by more pious aides, but no matter what, it sure did work, and the faithful base rallies behind him, much like a modern Christian crusade. Something about their willingness to believe in all sorts of supernatural claims and ignore opposing evidence has primed their minds for President Trump to fill their heads with whatever he wants. With 30,000 plus lies on record during his 4-year term, he may be the only person ever to rival the sheer amount of false and misleading claims found in the Bible. Biggest inauguration ever? Don't have to prove it to me. Perfect phone call, no collusion. Sounds swell. Armed mob sent by him to vandalize the Capitol, terrorize both houses, and even ended up killing a couple police officers? Love fest! Let's be honest, people. Trump may claim the election was stolen by the Democrats all he wants, but it is he alone who is attempting to overturn democracy and steal an election that he lost, fair and square. From January 6th, where he literally sent an armed militia to try and halt the certification of ballots, to begging the Georgia governor to fudge 17,000-something votes in order to overturn the Electoral College in that state, to the Arizona Maricopa County sham recount by the Cyber Ninjas group that he promoted, which found more votes for Biden and less votes for him, proving he lost worse than originally thought, which he claimed as a win immediately after at a rally. Trump is the one actively trying to steal the previous election. His fraudulent scapegoating of the Democrats in this circumstance is just the pathetic wailings of a sore loser and nothing more. Trump is like the boy who cried election fraud. You can only falsely cry wolf 30,000 times or so before the wise stop coming to your aid. Even my optometrist, who I have been visiting for 20-something years and consider a well-educated man, bought the rigged election narrative hook, line, and sinker. Suffice to say, I'll be seeking a new eye doctor for my next appointment. You may wonder how the conservatives can believe this crap so strongly, but then you remember that most of them believe literally that the devil took the form of a talking snake who was able to infinitely damn humanity because the first woman ate fruit, who came from a man's rib, who himself was made from dust via a Jewish golem spell, whose descendants incestuously populated the earth. Also, that a simple family of 8 somehow built a boat which was able to carry samples of the entire anthropobiosphere during a physically impossible deluge before incestuously repopulating the earth only pages after the first instance, and a zombie resurrectionist son of a god who could walk on water, turn water to wine, and who is also his father and the Holy Ghost and himself, not to mention there being various angels and demons who you would reluctantly, although accurately, could describe as demigods, but it isn't polytheism, no, even though it sort of totally is. And people still wonder why I'm an atheist. Suddenly, conspiracy theories about wildfire-starting Jewish space lasers, communist government-mandated magnetic tracker vaccines, as well as widespread voter fraud and stolen elections sound almost reasonable by comparison. And they more than make sense to these magical, mystical, miracle-minded maniacs. These people don't operate in an evidence-based reality like some of us do. For them, anything is possible because their God can do anything. And what's their justification for this claim? 'Cause the Bible tells me so. Remember that Sunday school song, anyone? That's another thing. Religion is extremely good at corrupting young minds even before they get to kindergarten in many cases, and is equally adequate at lobbying against general scientific education and curriculum. Get them while they're young is a common phrase mocking the light-speed pace at which religion indoctrinates children. By the time they reach the first class with a lesson of biology or physics, it's usually years too late. Many people never even meet somebody outside of their faith until they leave home from college, if they are so lucky to get the chance. This was my experience, at least. Although I can remember having never fully gotten on board, even as a child, with the myths and miracles, I had honestly never met anyone who had fundamentally challenged my faith until community college, where I met and dated a Mormon girl. All it took was recognizing that her religion sounded stupid to me, but also that she thought the same about mine, to logically conclude that at a bare minimum, one of us was wrong about everything. It only took a small leap of faith beyond that to realize perhaps, and quite likely, we were both wrong. I took a quick survey of the popular religions on offer, not taking much time to dispense with them all before I took a class in astronomy. Well, I had meant to do so 6 months sooner, but I confused cosmology with cosmetology and ended up cutting hair for a semester. I instantly was enamored with the process of the Big Bang and learning how gravity turned a universe of hydrogen gas into blue giant stars, which exploded in supernova, forging denser elements so our solar system could coalesce and carbon-based life could begin. It's truly poetic. Long story short, religion gave me only questions. Science gave me the answers. Ironically, it was my evangelical father who taught me the concept of critical thinking, which led me to these questions. He would constantly challenge me with tests like letting me decide how to fix something we were working on. I think he has since regretted his instruction because I eventually critically thought my way out of religion. Back to the conservatives. I think it is ironic that Trump basically is the antithesis of a godly man in practically every way. If you have even paid an inkling of attention to the news of the last 5 years, I guarantee you can think of at least one example for each of the following deadly sins: pride, lust, gluttony, envy, greed, wrath, and sloth. I think the true believers are secretly becoming desperate to cling to their way of life and set of beliefs in a world which is increasingly scientific and constantly rejects their mystical claims. So it doesn't matter who wins their elections as long as they win and are Christian, or at least claim to be. Even a heretic like Trump can take office under these criteria. Oddly enough, as bad as his term in office was, I think there is a silver lining to Trump having been president. In 2016, there were much better candidates when it came to religious integrity. Ben Carson or Ted Cruz or many of the others, for example. But they instead chose a pathological liar who has been the butt of the joke in popular media for decades now as the obviously evil businessman. It blatantly exposed the hypocrisy and utter desperation of the right to cling to power and to the past, and really brought their racially biased, ultra-nationalistic, anti-scientific ignorance of the far right into public view like never before, an exposure which I believe will soon be its demise. Make America great again? When was it ever great if not now? Before civil rights? Before the New Deal? Before women could vote? Before the end of slavery? Or maybe just a time where Christianity and conservatism wasn't in question, obviously made out to be a scam thanks to the internet and outspoken atheists and liberals. For millennia, religious proponents could brainwash everybody in town and basically could get away with it. Now all you have to do is whip out your phone and Google, "Is there a God?" A search which often leads to videos of Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris, among other prominent unbelievers, making tons of sense, who invariably dominate during debates with even the best and brightest religious apologists in the world. 20 years ago, this discussion was entirely one-sided, often squashed before it could begin. "Don't you question God! The only sin is unbelief." It's true. It's well accepted in theology that there is no sin that is not forgivable except unbelief. That is the true power of the concept of hell. It has absolutely nothing to do with how good or evil or moral you are in life. You could rape, murder, steal, adulter, and betray every sympathetic bone in your body as long as you appropriately beg for forgiveness. But this simple act of rebellion via disbelief is the true criteria for which the concept of eternal damnation and hellfire was derived. And it would seem, after personally interviewing dozens of Christians for over a decade, that their primary motivation to believe is avoiding hell. They often admit it outright when backed into a corner, citing the same old tired argument of Pascal's wager, the better safe than sorry argument which philosophers have tidily dealt with thousands of times before. It seems the concept of burning in hell forever is a strong negative motivator. It's exceedingly ironic that the primal concept of hell may have originated from pits ancient societies would dig to toss trash in so they may safely burn it. Pits of burning fire. Pretty analogous to hell, right? I used to work for a dump that has existed in town for over 100 years or so, and they have pictures on the wall and tell stories of how the pits of burning trash thing used to be a commonplace even there. I think Trump's presidency was the desperate response of the conservative base to reclaim a society which has made their worldview increasingly untenable and unreasonable. Their racist, homophobic, ultra-nationalistic, anti-scientific, pro-mythological, blatantly arrogant and ignorant views and opinions are constantly under attack by secular, humanistic, rational-minded ideals. Maybe we needed a chump like Trump to truly expose them for their evil attributes, just so we may point them out and say, never again. We've seen how a selection bias for ignorance can turn the clock of progress back by decades, and now, with a clear example of our worst in plain sight, we may be able to avoid many future mistakes. Hindsight was 20/20. Maybe next episode we'll look at how his botched COVID response and over-politicizing of masks and vaccine has led to 700,000 American deaths by this point, many of which were not only avoidable, but his political constituents. But I digress. Until next time, I'm the Young Contrarian. Thanks for watching. Keep it real. JC out.